Does work take up too much time, leaving you with very little or no time to take care of yourself? I've been there. I remember working full-time and how busy I always felt. I felt like I could never catch up. But it doesn't have to be this way. 6 years ago, I made a switch to part-time work and haven't looked back. I've gained so much freedom and flexibility, and I want to talk with you about the benefits of part-time work. Too often, we buy into this common script that we need to keep making more and more money than we currently are. A lateral step is often seen as a step backward. I know that I bought into this myth. It dictated the jobs I would consider and eventually pushed me to a point where I worked myself way too hard until my body said, that's enough. 6 years ago, after I earned a promotion, I was forced to take a 6-month medical leave. I've talked about this in other videos, but for those of you who don't know, I experienced severe anxiety and panic attacks and couldn't handle it anymore. Unexpectedly, I had to take a break from work. Initially, I thought it would be a couple of weeks, but it took me 6 months to recover. After 6 months away from work, I finally returned to work part-time and at a new employer. I initially saw working part-time as a temporary solution, but I'm now going on 6 years of working part-time, and I will never ever go back to full-time work. Well, my story is an extreme one. I see too many people continuing to work full-time because they see no good alternative. That's why I'm excited to share 5 benefits of working part-time. Without further delay, let's jump into the benefits. The first benefit of working part-time is more time to focus on what matters to you. How you use this time is up to you. The amount of extra time that you will have will depend on how much you choose to work. If you don't already know this, there are varying degrees of part-time work. Depending on where you work, your employer's definition of full-time and part-time will vary. Full-time is typically seen as anywhere from 30 to 45 hours per week, with most knowledge workers embracing a 40-hour work week. Part-time work, therefore, can be anywhere from 5 hours per week to 35 hours per week. But in most instances, I see people working 40 to 80% of a full-time schedule, which equates to 16 to 32 hours per week. Even if you reduce your hours by 20% or only 8 hours per week, this results in a 32-hour work week, and you have 1 extra day each week to spend however you choose. You could use this time to run errands during the week. Ever since we started working for ourselves, we committed to doing our grocery shopping and other errands midweek. This not only makes errands more pleasant with less traffic, but it also means we have more time on the weekends to hang out with friends and do other activities. But it's really up to you how you use this time. You could also spend this time on hobbies, visiting family, or just relaxing. The 40-hour work week was first introduced by Henry Ford in the 1920s. Almost a century later, so many of us let this artificial number dictate how many hours we work each week. Choosing to work part-time takes back control and gives you that time to use however you choose. Working part-time isn't just about regaining more time each week. It can also provide significantly less stress. Working fewer hours can provide you with the time to recover from burnout. When you continue to push yourself to the limit, as I did when I was working in a toxic job, it continues to wear on you. It's kind of like running a marathon. Your body can only continue at a certain pace for so long. And despite how good of shape you're in, running that far is just not good for you. I'm not trying to suggest that you can't find a balance while working full-time, but working part-time makes it so much easier to find a manageable stress level. When I went back to work part-time, I found that I not only had less stress, but so much more mental energy. I signed off work not completely drained. It was truly night and day. This allowed me to have more time and mental space to invest in passion projects. This ultimately led me to starting my coaching business, first as a side project, and now it's my main focus as I've fully committed to entrepreneurship. And this gives me even more flexibility and freedom. If you go through your weeks waiting for the weekend and then get there only to feel drained and exhausted, it may be time to consider reducing your hours to part-time. Another major benefit of working part-time is being more intentional with your time and feeling less of a push to escape your life through consumerism. When I was working full-time, preparing dinner was one of the hardest things to do during the week. My husband Corey and I would both work long hours and have exhausting days, and spending time preparing a meal was not in the cards most nights. We didn't plan on eating out as much as we did. It just kind of happened. Have you ever felt this way? Let me know in the comments below. I honestly didn't realize how much we were actually doing this until I made the switch to part-time. It's a bit ironic because I was initially hesitant to reduce my hours and go back part-time because of concerns about finances. One of the biggest fears that I had prior to reducing my hours was fearing that I wouldn't make enough money to meet our financial goals. It actually took me diving into our finances and better understanding them to give myself the permission to work part-time. My husband was still working full-time, and we had already reached Coast-Fi, meaning that investing in our retirement was optional. This ultimately gave me the confidence to take that part-time job in the first place. If you haven't heard of Coast-Fi, we've released several videos on it that I recommend that you watch. I'll link to one of those videos up here so you can watch it after this video. Once I started working part-time, I realized that I no longer felt the urge to get takeout as often, or to buy random stuff off Amazon to get that dopamine hit, or to buy pre-chopped vegetables to make it easier to make dinner. About 1 year after working part-time, I decided to review our spending. The thing that surprised me the most was that we reduced our spending by about $17,000, and all of it was on convenience and escape. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess, but I still find it funny that I was so concerned with finances, and it almost held me back from trying out part-time work when it was actually way more nuanced and more balanced. I definitely made less money when working part-time compared to full-time, but with the huge reduction in our spending, with eliminating all of that spending on convenience and escape, it actually didn't make a huge difference. If you find yourself trying to escape your life through convenience, reducing your hours is a great way to correct that and find a better balance. Working part-time also offers more flexibility. This is noticeably different than having extra time each week. It's also about the flexibility of when you get to work. If you work 3 days per week, you have a lot more options to take extended vacations while using a limited number of PTO days. Someone working 5 days per week would need to take 5 full days off in order to have 9 consecutive days off. Whereas someone working 3 days a week would only need to take 3 days off to have 11 consecutive days off. If you also have the ability to choose which days you work each week, you would be able to extend that to 13 consecutive days off by shifting the 3 work days in the 3rd week to the end of the week. All of that with only taking 3 days off. This is one of the superpowers of working part-time. Not only does it give you so much more time each and every week, but it often comes with exponential flexibility that gives you so much more freedom. It offers you the flexibility not only with paid time off, but also with the ease to schedule doctor's or dentist appointments that would otherwise require you to schedule around work meetings, or worse, take time off. Last but not least, the 5th benefit of working part-time is that it's so much easier to set boundaries at work. Setting boundaries at work is so important for everyone. Unfortunately, that can be more difficult to do at times, depending on your work environment. Some employers expect a lot out of you and ask that you make yourself available at all times of the day or week. Some of us can also have a harder time setting boundaries for ourselves based on our personality or our work ethic. Sometimes it can just be really hard to say no. But working part-time gives you a huge step up in this regard. It makes it so much easier to set boundaries when there is a contractual agreement that you're only working part-time hours. Think about it this way. If there are multiple people on your team or at your company who can do a task, who will they reach out to first? The full-time employee who is expected to get the job done regardless of how long it takes? Or the part-time employee who works a fixed number of hours each week? That's not to say you won't have to do a little bit of extra work here and there, but it's so much easier to set clear boundaries at work as a part-time employee. This is a huge benefit of working part-time and contributes to the increased mental energy that I mentioned earlier. If you're someone who could benefit from setting clearer boundaries at work, it may be time to consider working part-time. Working part-time isn't limited to just 5 benefits, but these are some of my favorite perks that I've taken advantage of. If you have another benefit that wasn't mentioned, please add that in the comments below. And if you're looking for more flexibility in your work schedule, but aren't yet ready to reduce your hours, check out this video on 9 ways to gain a more flexible work schedule. Part-time isn't the only option to gain more flexibility. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy the journey.